Hello, this is another one of my videos on my essay Sociological Theories regarding the emergence and development of new religious movements. This one dealing with crises of meaning and psychic fulfilment. We've already talked about psychological theories and deprivation theories, and this is part of a long section on crisis theories. So, crises of meaning and psychic fulfillment. According to Maslow, individual human beings need a whole series of qualities and states to ensure their psychic well-being. These include the need for a sense of continuing physiological survival and for an adequate sense of social esteem and potency, but go beyond this to include qualities which have a less exact relationship with the environing social structure. Of these, the needs for love, belongingness, and sexual expression have assumed particular emphasis in modern Western societies and are regarded by Maslow and others as the most common sources of frustration and psychopathogenesis. The religious consequences of such frustrations are somewhat indeterminate, however. In terms of new religious movements, the most common expression of such needs would seem to be the formation of communal groups characterized by intense feelings of group togetherness. Such groups appear to be particularly likely to form in periods and amongst social groups in which traditional social ties have been weakened, as for example as a result of migration or changing patterns of family life, but need not be specifically religious. More important for our purposes are the needs for meaning and self-actualization, to use Maslow's term, crises of meaning. Whether or not human beings are congenitally compelled to impose meaningful order upon reality, as Peter Berger suggested, the need for meaningfulness and coherence often becomes a very compelling human objective, being related to the Maslowian need for security and a sense of order. Religion, science, and philosophy all, at least partially, fulfill this need. Threats to the security which they represent, as for example by heresy, often leading to a closer clinging to authority. Although some individuals may lack a meaningful system of values by which to interpret and organize their lives, what Bloch has termed psychic deprivation, it would appear that the most widely experienced crises of meaning were those which stemmed from a severe disjunction between objective experience and the systems of explanation which were employed to imbue that experience with meaning. Although variously phrased, this disjunction was rooted either in radical social change, some new factor of experience such as war or a devastating epidemic disease which cast doubt on existing explanations, or some ideological challenge. Responses to this disjunction ranged from a re-emphasis on traditional forms and ideological conformity, and, often when this traditionalistic approach had failed, an experimentation with innovation, which might in turn lead to a fresh relevancy between aspiration and achievement. The highest order of human needs, according to Maslow, was the continuing process of self-actualization, by which people attained their own potential by attachment to ideal values such as wholeness, justice, and meaningfulness. Those who were attached to such values were willing to resist social pressures in seeking to attain them, even when this conflicted with their lower order needs. In terms of the emergence of actual religious movements, Maslow's self-actualization needs corresponds to Weber's concept of ideal interests, or the value conflicts underlying what Bloch termed ethical deprivation. For Weber, ideal, as opposed to material interests, assume particular importance when methodologically rationalized or when expressed in the lives of those dominated by an ethic of sheer commitment to ultimate values, that is, religious or more generally ideological virtuosity. It was this minority of intellectuals who were driven by some inner compulsion to reflect on ethical and religious questions, and who therefore were liable to come into conflict with the prevailing ideological values. Although such commitment might be accentuated in a crisis context, as for example in the frustration of ideal interests, the need for self-actualization would more often appear to operate as an element of positive motivation. For the minority so motivated to assume wider importance, however, some wider appeal must be made, and it is in this regard that crisis factors may become relevant. For example, Dekmetian and Wisniewski propose a linkage between the small group of charismatically inspired individuals who constitute the focus of a revolutionary religious movement, the Gemeinde, and the larger mass of followers who are bewildered by the breakdown of the prevailing social order and are thus amenable to the message of the Gemeinde and its prophetic leader. Whilst the actual success of any religious movement based on ideal interests is necessarily dependent upon the wider social context and material interests of the virtuosity's potential allies and congregations, the original motivational force of ideal interests should not be minimalized. Michael Hill, for example, has stressed the recurrent importance of what he terms traditional leverage, that is, the appeal for religious innovation in the form of a restatement and re-emphasis on traditional values. Again, Ralph Turner has emphasized the importance of changing conceptions of social justice as a dominant preoccupation of most reformist social movements in a given social historical milieu. That's what I'm going to say for the moment. Thank you for listening, and thank you in particular to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement. Without them, I wouldn't be able to make these videos. You're very welcome to support my channel, like, comment and share on the videos. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give Patreon link below if you want to provide practical support. Next week we'll talk about ideological contexts. Have a good day.